I want to play just the first 10 seconds of this clip here because you see she's wearing a name brand Gucci hijab scarf, but the first 10 seconds of what she's saying is like an oxymoron.
Hi, I'm Ubah Kadere. I'm a single black immigrant mother and homeowner in the unincorporated area of Renton, and I'm running for King County Council in District 9. I came to King County 25 years ago as a 15-year-old refugee. My values are shaped by my lived experiences, my policy chops, and my organizing background. For decades, we have seen our Black, Indigenous, people of color communities and working class communities facing systemic and structural racism. These problems peaked last year with COVID and a renewed reckoning of systemic racial injustices. Today, we need bold vision rooted in community to reimagine how King County functions. I bring forth decades-long experience building policy to tackle systemic issues in our region. I have consistently delivered wins on housing.
Yeah, so first of all,
what have you done about the crime?
Right. Well, but why are you talking about black? Why are you talking about systemic racism when Obama and Bush allowed you guys a free pathway to come here? And from the time y'all got here, you've been robbing and taking advantage of our system, frauduling the system here. You know, you're talking about you're a single mother, and I guess you can afford that Gucci scarf. You know, you a homeowner. Well, where'd you get the money from to buy that home? Like, I'm questioning everything. And so what they're doing, like the Democrats love to do, is use the racism playbook. But here you have an immigrant, an African immigrant. This is the African American, not me, talking about some type of systemic racism. But you guys in Somaliland there in Minnesota, Minneapolis, you control that area, your politics, you know, the education. They're the ones that's in charge. So where's the systemic racism coming from? Stop putting black, seeing black. No. You're African. You're an immigrant.
It was a very different situation back in the 60s when racism was still at its peak, and you could go places where they still had signs, no colored allowed, no Negroes allowed, whites only.
And her kind wasn't in this country when that was going on.
I know that. So this thing now about this lament about the residuum from slavery 160, 180, 200 years ago sounds rather ridiculous in retrospect, because essentially you get your act together, you sat down at the table and you did your homework, the kitchen table, you can become a multimillionaire just as quickly as anybody else in the country. But we singularly do not prepare ourselves to take that mantle. We are not doing what other ethnic groups are doing, figuring out how the economic system works. See, you know what interests me about
there's the other groups are stealing.
Yeah, but you see, you know what gets me about this whole thing is it shows a knowledge of how our system works.
But they're stealing. You know what they're doing? Yes, they are learning our system to steal billions of dollars. So it's systemic racism.
Well, hold on. Here's what the thing is. Too many Black Americans do not know how the system works, certainly not well enough to steal from it. These people came in and they learned the system. So why have these descendants of folk that have been here for several hundred years declined to avail themselves of the opportunity and trying to play victim? So what I was saying is you have ample opportunity to be as rich as you want in this country if you learn how it works. And that means sitting down at your table when you are a child and doing your homework. That means for the next generation, and this is the real legacy that needed to be passed on, not the money, but sitting down and having your child do the homework, and if necessary, sitting across the kitchen table to deal with it. But The parents are too busy doing the hip hop thing themselves to pay attention to what the children are doing, and the children are coming of age insufficiently skilled in how things work in the 21st century, whether it's government, music, finance, technology, engineering, math, whether it is how to deal with social skills and get along with other folk. You can hear it. 45 years ago, they would have been talking about now we go to Mr. Cronkite in D.C. for commentary. Now they go to, we're going to Walt in D.C. You see, this familiarity where everybody, in spite of whether you are a failure or you're a success or you're a nobody, is supposed to be treated on the same level as those who are successful. This is something I used to get on people about when I was on the state trial bench. Excuse me, why can't you, sir, operate with a modicum of respect for the people you're addressing? The court is addressing you as sir. And you'll notice that all of the people that are the doctors, lawyers, engineers, businessmen, and make a big income say, sir, ma'am, thank you, please, may I? And you're going around, you can't be insulted. Now, maybe there is a connection, maybe not, but you're going to find out because Officer Williams is going to escort you over there to the local lockup and see if his key works. And if it is, you're going to spend a little bit of time with us and we'll come back and see if you develop mannerability in a while. And amazingly, they would quickly develop manners when they were compelled to do it. But you see, this stripping everything down of all formality, all politeness and mannerability in discourse and interaction with each other, this thing of you're entitled no matter how little effort you put into your own life, how lazy you are, how little purpose you have, how lacking you may be in direction, how much you fail to understand that there are consequences to anything that you do. Well, guess what? It's time to stop that. But you see, that provides the Democratic Party with their only talking point. These guys that are trying to get you to be responsible humans and adults, they're evil, they're Baba Yagas. So we have to protect you from them. Meanwhile, you can undergo theft and death on your city streets. And we don't care because it's more important to us to get rid of all the rules. So, yeah, that's really stinks. That really stinks, you know?
Let me just sum up this Minnesota real quick. You know, for now, this is part one because we gotta ride on this Minnesota fraud. So apparently, following the exposure of million in fraud at Somali-run care centers in Minnesota, similar concerns are now surfacing in Washington State, where 539 of the 5,000 licensed care centers are Somali-run, many lacking physical address. So we could do a follow-up on that later on in the week when we pre-record as a part two, because I hear you, you know, Black America, learn how the system works, you know, get involved in politics, you know, be productive. But I'm sorry, these people, these fence jumpers, river crossers, and people from these third world war-torn countries, whether we were involved or not, and we allow you to come over here, they steal and take advantage of our system. And the average American just want to work and have a decent home and a decent community and give their children a decent education and pay their taxes. Our taxes should not be taken advantage of by crooks, especially when they just got here yesterday. So we still got to talk about, I want to talk about Ilhan. I want to talk about,
I
can
hear
you hear me?
You want to talk about Ilhan.
So this says this may have been the early signs of problems in Minnesota. According to her most recent filing, Ilhan Omar's net worth is estimated to be $30 million.
Wait. What?
Yes.
How do you get to be that when for your entire adult life you collected a government check?
And you were fleer.
Wait just a minute. Something is way wrong with this picture.
Yep. 1 second, Judge. Brenda, sometimes it's something with the connection where eventually my words are gonna catch up. It does that with the connection. I gotta call Spectrum to up my Wi-Fi. So it's something with the connection. Thank you for telling me. Yeah, so it says here 66,000% increase since 2019. The increase appears to be from her husband, who started a venture capital firm in 2022, which recently scrubbed all official data from his website. According to the New York Post, another 5 million of that comes from a California winery, which not only had allegations of fraud but was declared a failure in 2023. In 2024, the winery suddenly shot up to 5 million in value. Yet they have allegedly not sold a bottle, posted anything on social media since 2023. The numbers is no longer in service. Omar held her 2018 victory party at the Safari restaurant. In 2020, Ilhan Omar Mills Act in Congress, which laxed oversight of government-sponsored children's meal programs during a pandemic. The DOJ then found the owner of that restaurant, Salam Hamid, said guilty of stealing more than 12 million for serving 3.9 million phantom meals during a pandemic. And Guhad Hashi said, who worked on Omar's campaign in 2018 to 2020, also pleaded guilty to running a fake food site called Advanced Youth Athletic Development, where he falsely claimed to serve 5,000 meals a day and pocketed 3.2 million out of the food program.
We got a situation like that in Shelby County. Somebody was denied further contracts after it being discovered that they had a $13 million payout to them for allegedly conducting, shall we say, tutorial classes that nobody, the principals, hadn't heard of, through multiple small contracts of 100,000 or less that had never been submitted to the board for consideration. And there's every indication that some of the board members allegedly may be taking stuff under the table from that. So this kind of thing is almost like it's a blueprint. Years ago, they had one that was being passed around by the conservative interest. You pull it out of the book and change some of the words around and pass it as legislation in your state, which screwed stuff up because it created great inconsistencies in the state's law. It looks like they've got a playbook like that they pass around to Democratic representatives who take pages out of it and find ways to steal. It's crazy.
Exactly. Now, Republican Randy Fine from Florida said on Wednesday in an interview that he is actively considering forcing a vote to expel Ilhan Omar from Congress. The House has struggled this year to curb the use of tools like expulsion, censure, and impeachment by renegade members as a cudgel against their political adversaries. Some members have even floated raising the threshold for censure, a rebuke that is supposed to carry significant weight, but has been watered down by its growing use in recent years. So it says Fine in an interview on Capitol Hill pointed to fundraising email from Omar's campaign suggesting he be expelled for saying Muslims should be destroyed. I won't send out fundraising emails calling for her expulsion. If I'm going to do that, you will see me bring the piece of paper. I am actively considering that. So Trump said he wants her gone. We have so far 1 or 2 Republicans saying that, they want to actively start some type of paperwork to get her expelled from Congress.
By the way, 6 years ago, if Trump had said that, they'd be hammering to get him impeached and or prosecuted using lawfare. It's just free speech. But 6, 7 years ago, Democrats, when they control things, would have been kicking a prosecution into high gear like they did down in Georgia.
Right.
Because he said, find me some more votes. And it turns out there were 320 some thousand more votes out there to be found, perhaps.
Well, here's the thing. With this investigation continuing, in Minnesota, now you have the FBI, the DOJ, Homeland Security. If Ilhan is in any involvement with this fraud, and even a governor, is that grounds for her expulsion?
Yes, it is. And by the way, the House has expelled members in my lifetime for a lot less just because there were questions about fraud and embezzlement, misappropriation of funds. There's questions. Nobody got proven guilty of that. But you see, even for the president and vice president, there are three basic grounds for sustaining an impeachment: of finding that the person is engaged in either misdemeanor or felony conduct in office, committed a misdemeanor or felony crime. Bribery is the second category. And thirdly, the category of treason, which is almost impossible to prove these days because it's the only crime defined in the Constitution. And what it requires is going to be hard to establish short of a wartime situation. Now, taking that out, did somebody commit a misdemeanor or a felony in office? Easy enough if they get in that situation. Vice President Spiro Agnew turned in his resignation. Minority Whip Jerry Ford took his place as vice president and agreed to pardon Dick Nixon of his criminality with the Watergate thing way back 50 years ago. And you have that. Are we dealing with bribery? Maybe. But those two things, bribery and committing a general misdemeanor or felony while in office, are grounds for impeachment. And as with Spiro Agnew, for prosecution. He wound up getting indicted in Maryland and in the federal courts and wound up serving time in each system. Mm-hmm. So I was out of law school when all that happened. So I was very much interested in it since I was slanting toward trial and criminal law. I paid a lot of attention to that.
Well, listen, that flashlight needs to be up under Tim Walz's ass, Ilhan ass, and every Somalian in Minnesota. And
let me add a caveat I think both of us would agree to. If they go through all of the stages and they get properly vetted, take the classes, pass the test, and get sworn in as a citizen, good for them. They joined the team. In other words, they were a walk-on rather than somebody that got drafted during the NFL or the NBA draft, and they made it. Or they didn't get recruited to the college team by the college. They made it. They were walk-ons. I have no problem with that. But some people just got a free pass in this whole thing. And unlike some we've interviewed who have been subject to pendency of citizenship for 15 years, 21 years, 30 years, and are still trying to make it, somebody let some people cut the lines, and apparently they didn't do a good job with who they invited to cut the lines. Now, that I do have a problem with.
Right. Ohio. But before we get to Ohio, guys, so I won't forget, please hit the like button. Share this video on all your social media.
Before we say something you don't like.
Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up.